Hey there, Frank Pate, Infinity Replicast. So I just like doing these video things because it gives you guys my idea where I'm coming from. The whole blog thing is cool, but it, to me, doesn't always communicate where the person's really coming from. So on the production class ideas, looking at some of the questions that have been asked here recently, or commentaries, there's a couple things that Daniel and I were just talking about on the phone. One is that the production class over in Europe is very popular. It's very popular for a reason, because it takes the rider at a young age and sets him up in the direction of, one, being in a racing environment that is very balanced. Of course, in the United States, we don't have that same luxury, because if a guy's got more budget, over here, he can take more tires. Another guy's got more of a budget, he's got a better motor. Another guy's got a better budget, he's got a fresh top end every weekend. So there's, the budget is always going to be the governing factor. With the production class, it takes the budget and it paralyzes it at a certain point where everybody has the same budget. That's a simple thing, right? But going out and trying to ride a street bike, the Ninja 250, which is a cool bike. We thought about riding that ourselves this year. That one is actually, an interesting concept, but it is a very heavy bike. So for a younger rider, it's a very heavy bike. An example, the Aprilia Cup, which is over in England. It's also in Europe. The Aprilia Cup, they ride the 125s over there. Those bikes are getting upwards of the low 30 horsepower range. The bikes are very similar in chassis setup and configurations as to the factory to the GP bikes. And by the time you strip all the bodywork off and all the lights and electrical components and make it into a track bike or a race bike, it's in the neighborhood of about 220 pounds, which is more than a 125. It's kind of like the 250 Aprilia Challenge bike. It's up in that 240 or 250 range, I think. But anyways, a 125 making 30-something, almost 30-something horsepower and only weighing 200-something pounds. Yeah, it's slower than a GP bike. However, it does have similar horsepower to weight characteristics of a GP bike, although it's still heavier. So the point we're trying to make here is that taking a guy on a production bike, putting him out there with a fair playground with everybody, and he gets one set of tires for the weekend. There's no change in tires every day. It's one set for the entire weekend. That's how they run it over there. They get spec tires, they get fuel, boom, done. Bikes are dynoed to make sure they haven't been messed with. And everybody's pretty much running the same equipment. So it comes up to the rider. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about developing riders. Now, that doesn't help the older guys like me and some of you other ones that we want to go out there and go at this too, because it's a whole lot of fun. It's true, it is a whole lot of fun. But we're talking about developing the future riders, the future Valentino Rossi's, the future Nicky Hayden's, the future racers that are going to be out there actually racing, not us guys that in 5 or 6 years are definitely going to be sitting and watching from the pits at best. So, appreciate the commentary. Let's keep it coming. We're looking to hear more, but we're probably starting to look at some things right now as a group effort and looking at a possibility of doing something with somebody next year in a production capacity. Daniel and I both are passionate about this idea. It's a cool idea. It's a great way as a training tool. It could be something that could be really fun to bridge people into the 600s if they're going to go, because that's another point. How many of the riders that we've had that have ridden GP chassis bikes, Josh Herrin, Garrett Carter, there's others, have actually made it and gone to GP bikes for their career? There's only a couple, and that's in light of the Red Bull Rookie Cup situation going on. But as far as the ones that have come up through the ranks, so to speak, and not just been pulled out of the environment and put into World GP, the guys that are actually, making their ways up from the GP chassis wind up going over and riding 600s. Josh, Garrett. I think personally they were done a disservice because they rode bikes that had phenomenal suspension and phenomenal horsepower to weight ratio, and now they've had to struggle for several years to figure out this pig of a bike that doesn't handle nearly as good and has way less horsepower in relationship to how much weight it has to carry around. So they actually have to relearn how to ride a bike all over, where if they had a bike that was a production bike that didn't handle quite so well, was a little bit heavier, and was a little bit down on power, they'd automatically be setting themselves up in the direction of learning that early. Then if they move on to GP and stick with GP, then they've got those skills because they know how a proper bike handles. And then if they have to go back to 600s or production sport racing because they can't make it a GP, then guess what? They've already got the experience of a bike that doesn't handle so well. And they've got that knowledge and that time in the saddle. They're going to adapt to Superbike, Super Sport class that much easier. So just some other things to think about. Thanks for the feedback. Bye.